Picture this for a second. You're living in a totally hostile foreign land, and absolute power is held by this ruthless, terrifying king. Now imagine that the penalty for defying this guy is literally death. I mean, let's be honest, most of us in that situation would just keep our heads down, right? We'd blend in, follow the rules, and just try to survive. But the man we're talking about today, he didn't do that. No way. He risked execution, and get this, he didn't do it to lead some massive rebellion or try to seize the throne. He risked his life for a simple, forbidden, and deeply dangerous act of compassion, burying the forgotten dead. So why on earth would anyone do that?
Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're looking at a pretty incredible text from ancient history, the book of Tobit, and we're going to unpack a concept that is honestly just as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago: costly compassion. You see, this is a story about a faith that doesn't just, rest on words or prayers or singing songs. It's about a faith that moves beyond all of that into dangerous physical action. It really asks us what real faith actually looks like when the stakes are literally life and death.
Part 1. Faith when nobody is watching.
Let's move through the timeline and see how this builds, because it's basically a high-stakes true crime thriller. Tobit lived during this devastating exile in Assyria, facing just immense pressure to conform, but he made a different choice. First, we start with his exile. Then we see him making the terrifying decision to bury the dead in secret. Next comes the inevitable discovery by the king, which completely forces him to flee for his life. And then, honestly, this is the most shocking part. He returns, only to do the whole thing all over again.
Now, you might be wondering, why was burying the dead such a massive crime in the first place? Well, during this time, fellow Israelis were being murdered by the authorities. But they weren't just killed, their bodies were intentionally left exposed in the streets. And this wasn't some oversight. Leaving bodies unburied was a highly calculated tactic by the king. It was a gruesome warning meant to spread absolute terror and show off his unchecked power. It sent a loud and clear message: look at what happens if you step out of line. Anyone who dared to interfere with those bodies risked the exact same fate.
Part 2. Burying the forgotten. Tobit just couldn't ignore the suffering of his people. His compassion totally refused to surrender to the king's fear tactics. Just feel the tension in this statement. Under the cover of darkness, he retrieved the bodies and buried them with dignity. I mean, every single night he stepped out of his door, he was playing a deadly game of cat and mouse with the king's guards. One snapping twig, that could mean his immediate execution. Yet, night after night, he went out into the dark to give rest to people who could literally never say thank you. Part 3. The cost of courage.
Now, what's really interesting here is that in a society run by an absolute monarch, secrets rarely stay hidden for long. Word gets back to King Sennacherib, and the escalation is sudden, swift, and terrifying. Notice the heartbreaking irony of these consequences. His property? Confiscated. All his possessions? Taken away. His life is threatened and he's forced to flee. Doing the right thing didn't get Tobit a medal. It brought him absolute, devastating ruin.
Just pause and think about that for a second. Put yourself in his shoes. Would you have blamed him if he had just stopped? If he had said, look, I did my part, I tried, but the cost is just way too high. It's a deeply, deeply human urge to protect ourselves, right? Especially after we've already sacrificed so much. Most people would look at Tobit's ruined life and say, hey, you did enough. It's time to look out for number 1.
Part 4. Mercy always has a price.
So eventually King Sennacherib dies. Things cool down a bit and it becomes somewhat safe for Tobit to return home. But almost immediately he learns that another fellow Israelite has been murdered and left exposed. Think about the stark contrast in the choices before him. On one hand, you have the comfortable choice: sit down, eat dinner with the family, rest, tell himself he's already paid his dues, let someone else handle it. But on the other hand, the radical choice: he interrupts his dinner, leaves immediately, carries the body away before sunset, and risks absolutely everything all over again. So the crucial point is this: what does genuine faith actually look like in action? Well, real faith responds when everyone else looks away. It actively notices the suffering that society is perfectly happy to ignore. It places immense value on the people that the rest of the world has completely forgotten about. Tobit understood a really hard truth. True mercy is rarely convenient, and it absolutely always has a price.
Part 5. Courage over convenience.
All right, let's bring this directly into our modern lives. Look, most of us are never going to be asked to bury bodies under the threat of execution, but opportunities for risky mercy, they surround us every single day. Let's walk through these. Number 1, standing beside someone who has been totally rejected by your peer group. Number 2, defending a person who's being treated unfairly. Number 3, helping those who have absolutely zero ability to repay you. And number 4, speaking the truth in a room where staying silent would be infinitely easier.
Make no mistake though, just like in Tobit's time, acts of mercy absolutely still carry risks today. You might be completely misunderstood by your friends. You might get harshly criticized online. You could lose popularity or even sacrifice professional opportunities that everyone else is eagerly chasing. Because, let's face it, it's incredibly easy to serve when your service is applauded, or to be generous when you're just giving out of your surplus. The true test of faith comes when doing the right thing becomes expensive. We really have to be careful not to let our comfort become more important than our obedience.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real definition of courage. Courage, choosing obedience despite fear. Actually, scratch that. It's more like realizing courage isn't the absence of fear. If you aren't afraid, you don't even need courage. Courage is choosing obedience despite being terrified. Tobit never knew if walking out into the dark would be his last act of freedom, but he did it anyway. His reverence for God simply outweighed his fear of the king.
Part 6. The unseen reward.
You know, some of the absolute most meaningful acts of faith happen entirely in the shadows. When Tobit was out in the dark, there were no crowds cheering him on. If you're listening to this and feeling like the quiet sacrifices you make are completely invisible, this is for you. Maybe no one notices the endless sacrifices you make for your family. Perhaps your kindness at work is constantly overlooked, or you've held on to your integrity in a way that actually cost you a promotion. Rest assured, no crowds or awards are needed, because God sees exactly what everybody else misses.
The world is completely obsessed with these very specific metrics of success, right? Comfort, popularity, personal achievement, how many followers you have, how much money you make. But God measures faithfulness totally differently. He sees the caregiver who exhaustingly, faithfully serves a loved one every single day. He sees the volunteer who shows up early and leaves late, expecting absolutely nothing in return. These acts, they might never go viral, they might never make you famous, but they are recorded and remembered by God.
Ultimately, every single act of mercy we offer is really just a mirror. It's a reflection of God's own heart toward a hurting world. The greatest example of costly compassion isn't just found in ancient figures like Tobit, it's found in God himself. His love for humanity wasn't just spoken from a safe distance, it was demonstrated through ultimate, agonizing sacrifice. When we choose to embrace the cost of compassion, we are walking in exactly those footsteps.
As we wrap up this explainer, Tobit's story leaves us with a really provocative, honestly kind of uncomfortable question. Ask yourself, what am I unwilling to risk for the sake of compassion? Would you still choose kindness if it cost you something? Would you still serve others if it brought you inconvenience instead of a reward? True faith is measured by our willingness to love when love demands a sacrifice. If this explainer challenged or inspired you, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who might need the encouragement to keep doing the right thing even when it's hard. Until next time, stay curious and stay courageous.